Okay, hello everyone. Today is the 19th of January 2021, and this is the Kubernetes SIG Docs weekly meeting. I'm Tim Bannister. I'll chair this meeting. Hello everyone. First up, do we have people who are new contributors, people who are new to our weekly meetings or who have returned after a long absence? I see a bunch of new folks. Right, Tony, I saw your hand go up first, so please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tony Goslin. I'm a site reliability engineer over at Adobe. I was involved over in the 120 release last fall, and I'm stopping in to check this out.
Okay, Mike, I also see you're new. Mike Tugaron, is that right?
Yeah. Tugaron, very good. Most people don't get it right. I'm an SRE at Adobe as well. I work on a lot of our Kubernetes stuff, and I want to get more involved in upstream, and it was suggested that this is a good place to start.
Okay, anyone else here who's new? This is their first call or they're fairly new here? Chandani?
Yep, I'm Chandni. I'm a senior software engineer at MathWorks. I've been working with Kubernetes and Docker since past 3 years and just wanted to come in here, start contributing. Savita from my company at MathWorks suggested me this should be a good start, so here I am. Thanks.
Welcome.
And I also want to make a note that she is also one of the shadows for 1.21.
Yep.
Cool. Are there new folks? I think there are still more. Anyone else want to say hello?
Hey, hello everyone. I am Nivedita, a sophomore student from India. And yeah, I am trying to contribute to this community. Yeah, that's all. Happy Tuesday, everyone.
Welcome. I think we might even have more people still. Go ahead, Sanchit.
Hello everyone, hello everyone, this is Sanchit and I'm a developer at EPAM system. I'm also trying to contribute towards Kubernetes, but I think I'm still a beginner, so trying to understand.
Cool. I am going to suggest putting a new contributors item on the discussion. Typing noises intensify. Anyone else who is joining for the first time and wishes to say hello, please feel very welcome to do so. Any more for any more? Okay.
Well, I do see one other shadow on the call, Victor. I don't know if you are free to say a few words to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, was trying to reply to some email. So I'm Victor. I've been selected as a Docs Shadow for 121. I'm a software engineer. I worked in DevOps as well. I worked for AT&T, Red Hat, SUSE, Adidas, and today I work for a smaller company called Dectris.
Cool. Well, I'm not going to place any obligation on people to say hello, but if you are new and you want to introduce yourself in the shared agenda, if you've got access, or in Slack, or in the Zoom chat, you're all welcome to take any of those options. Okay, let's move into updates and reminders. This week's PR Wrangler is Only Dole, who is, I don't see on the call, but I'm sure is ready and waiting to wrangle. And next week is Celeste Horgan.
Right. Can you send him a ping just in case? You know, I had to make some last minute changes to the Wrangler schedule. So just in case he's not aware, Tim.
Brad, would you be willing to do the said pinging?
Yeah, I can do it.
Thanks, Brad. Okay, and then the first item on the main agenda is the Kubernetes 1.21 release and its documentation.
All right, so I'll go. So this is week 2 of the release. This week we are onboarding shadows. Two of them are here, Shandani and Victor. 2 others are Chiming, who is a SIG Docs member, and Maria. So today I will create the integration branch later today. I do have a question, and I might table this or Slack this on the config.toml if we need to for 1.20, we updated config.toml towards the end of the release, but on the handbook we stated that we do it early on. So I will do some confirmation later on, like when should be the best time to update config.toml. Like, does the integration branch need to point to the old version, or is it okay? Is it best off to update it towards the end of the release?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
speak. Go ahead,
Jim.
Jim. I was going to say that it's really up to the lead of the release. What you might run into if you update it early is, like, let's say Hugo versions change or anything changes in the config.toml, it would have to be brought back in, which should happen anyway. You might deal with some more merge conflicts by doing it earlier than later. My general rule of thumb or recommendation would be to do it earlier. And the only reason I say that is because you would then see in the page previews when someone creates a PR to that branch, you would see that version drop down updated correctly.
I see. All right, good point. So I will create that change and push it to the integration branch.
Any more updates on the release 1.2 on docs, right?
The only updates is that this week's kind of light, so I'm just onboarding shadows this week, and for people who have worked on the release, we know that the SIG Docs roles is kind of starts to kick up after enhancements phase. So doing 3 sessions on onboarding, and that's it for this week.
So if you're relatively new to the Kubernetes SIG Docs, one thing that I'll mention is that we work with usually very short-lived branches, or we try to work with short-lived branches and merge individual PRs, with the exception that documentation for the upcoming release is a long-lived branch that lives throughout the entire release cycle. And we have PRs that merge into that long-lived branch to document features that shouldn't be in the live documentation. Because unlike, say, the Kubernetes code repository, the website master branch goes live as soon as you merge to it. Any questions on that? If there's detailed questions, we can park them for later. But any questions? Okay, cool. Thanks, Brad. Okay, blog update. Does anyone wish to give us an update on the Kubernetes blog? I think that is a no for this week. So let's move on and talk about updating API reference. So this is PR 23294. I will stick that in the chat so people who are not looking at the agenda on Google Docs can see it as well. That's not the chat button, Tim. That is the chat button. So there's the link. I'll give people a moment to bring up this pull request so that people can see what we're discussing here. And then I wonder, Zach, would you, because you've got a connection to this, would you be willing to talk about this work?
Certainly. Excuse me. This will be, so briefly for context, last year we had a Google Season of Docs intern. Philippe Martin, who's a fellow, is the PR contributor. And Philippe's project was to update the way that we generate and present API reference documentation for Kubernetes. And the guts of the thing have merged, I think, either late last year or very early this year. And this particular PR is, if I understand correctly, is now the generated results of the actual generation mechanism. The generation mechanism itself lives in a Kubernetes SIGs or Kubernetes-SIGs organization repository. And the way that reference generation docs work is that we run the API generation from the code that lives in the Kubernetes SIGs repository and then merge the results into the website repository. So this is the generated results. And if I understand correctly where we are, we're currently discussing what's needed in order to merge this successfully with a minimum of breakage. Am I doing that justice, Tim?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent summary. Thank you very much, Zach. Karen Bradshaw, I see you've joined the call. Thank you very much. Really pleased to see you here as well. We are talking about the PR from Philippe Martin, which is pull request 23294. Karen, is there anything you'd like to say about this?
You caught me off guard. No, I haven't looked at it yet. Sorry.
I mean, I know that you've definitely been very active in reviewing this PR in its journey to today. You might not have seen the latest thing. If there's anything you'd like to say about generally, your views on what we should do and how things are going, then here's an opportunity for you to speak.
You only get 1 second. No, which PR are we talking about here? I'm sorry.
I'll put it in the chat again. It's 23294. It's if you want a moment, Karen, but you want to come back, I will. Okay, cool. Is there anyone who'd like to speak about this, who's already got a view or questions about what this is about at this point?
Oh, yes.
Just also checking for raised hands rather than
Okay,
anything in case anyone's doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Karen.
Is anyone else talking? So I mean, what's the question? I mean, this has been going on for a long time, right? And it seems like it's been thoroughly reviewed, but by a small set of people. So if you think that there should be a larger set of people engaged to review it, then now's the time to do it, because it's just, I don't know, it's been months and months and months of work. So I think it's, it represents a new way of displaying the API resources. But right now we have I think the original plan was to actually maintain the one-page reference side by side with the new pages until we felt that we were ready to remove the one-page reference. And there are remaining questions that are outlined in the PR, and you've brought up a few, Tim, you've brought up a few questions yesterday, I guess. So, so I don't know what people think about moving it forward. Yep.
Karen, I notice one of your pieces of feedback was about breaking bookmarks and about, let's see, where is it? There will be broken external connections to the single page reference. I think that's absolutely true. And I also don't know that it should be a blocker. I think I
agree with you.
Okay, cool. I was about to go into the whole song and dance, but if we agree,
nope,
then.
I totally agree. I think it's it's just the way it goes. So I don't see it as a blocker. I see it as kind of we're taking a step forward in kind of a new direction, and you know, that's the way it goes.
Fair. I don't recall talking about maintaining the references side by side, but I frankly think that's a good idea. You know, if we wanted to frame why we're doing that, we could certainly call it like either an alpha or a beta feature for testing. Use the liveness of it to test in production, and do all the cleanup work and get the thing out there at this point. I think we're at the stage, as you say, Karen, where the same pool of folks has reviewed this so many times. I don't know that we're going to get any new wisdom or any particular breakthroughs out of this until we see what happens with it live on the site. So maintaining a side-by-side reference availability with both the existing model and the newly generated model, I think makes sense. I do think that this is a time-boxed solution, because by merging the mechanism in Kubernetes SIGs, we basically have this release cycle to do things about that need to be fixed. And then we're, I think, fully committed for 1.21, if I understand correctly.
Okay, really good summarizing there, Karen and Zach. The concern, I think, that you thought was from Karen is actually, I think, mine, Zach, that I was concerned about a potential for breaking hyperlinks. And it's a concern I still have. I like the idea that we run them in parallel, because that's a much more generous way of moving forward than suddenly breaking all the links that exist. So yeah, sorry, I'm trying to talk and get the document open and feel a bit like a meeting chair at the same time.
So Tim, I wonder if, that's a valid concern about breakage. I wonder if we could adapt one of our existing deprecation warning shortcodes for the API reference and apply that to the 1.20 page to give folks a warning that that we are moving to the new reference generation model, and just broadcast clearly that folks will need to update their links due to impending breakage.
I'm going to put that in the notes. Yeah. So people on the call, go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick question with this. Will it auto update like the Google search links to the new format, or will those still end up hitting the old one when people Google for the API references? Because that'd be my biggest concern with the historical stuff, is just the, leaving the search results that come, the pure search results, not the ones going to blogs and all that kind of stuff.
Go ahead, Zach.
Being broken.
It will probably have the least SEO impact if we do the cut over during a release cycle, or like at the actual release time, because that is sort of the periodic window when our results generate, or when links start to repoint to the most current version rather than the previous version. That's our what our robots do. I think that we have a robots.txt that gently suggests that scrapers use the most modern version, if I think so.
So it sounds like actually the challenge is not so much merging this to run side by side. The challenge comes from when we cut over, and actually when we deprecate the other API reference.
Yeah, I would say so.
So one thing that is crossing my mind, and I will add this as feedback to the PR. I think I'll put this, I'll put this for discussion, is that we could merge the revised API reference, and then for some time, I hope just a few weeks, mark it as not indexable, or ask search engine not to index the new reference whilst we work out what the deprecation strategy is, but we get it merged. And then that means we can get this merged, which is a huge benefit. We're saving that discussion for later.
Just curious.
Yeah, I will put that as formal feedback after the meeting. Go on, Jim.
Just curious if we should be doing more PR, maybe like a community, the mailing list for Kubernetes developers, announcing that we're running these side by side, potentially, reiterating this in some of our meetings. I'm just thinking of how we can advertise, maybe a blog post or something similar to that. So folks don't think we come, fly by night and switch out their API refs and break all their bookmarks and then go back to our own dwellings.
So I actually recommend reaching out to SIG Architecture, because I think they are the most relevant SIG to sort of share coordinating that public relations, just to clarify what we mean by PR here, effort. And I will take that task unless anyone would like it
If it helps, Tim, there was a blog post late last year from Philippe about the project and about the new way of generating API reference. It was really close to the holidays, so I don't think it got a lot of visibility, but there is a blog post to which you can point.
Yeah, so we've got the blog post. I think we can, you know, I think an amount of PR campaign is appropriate, and I think. Is there another group that I should talk to within the wider Kubernetes project about communicating this sort of thing?
The only other people I can think of would be to CC the various SIG API, like API machinery, when you reach out to architecture, or maybe just ask architecture, who should I CC this to?
That seems reasonable. Okay. Anyone who's not spoken already and has questions or views, I'm gonna give a bit of time now. So if you've not spoken already on this topic, please, here's your moment. Okay, cool. And anyone else got anything that we want to talk about before we move on? Okay, that looks like we can wrap it up. Jim, quarterly reviews and planning.
Yep. So I put in a Slack chat robot, and for the folks who are just joining us, let me back up and give a little context on this. So part of SIG Docs, we definitely do kind of the day-to-day operations and work, you know, wrangling PRs, making sure tech reviews are in place, docs reviews, et cetera, et cetera. We also have the release team, which, you know, Ray and we've chatted about earlier in this meeting. And on top of that, we do quarterly planning sessions. And what that is where we take a look at the, I guess, broader strokes of what SIG Docs is responsible for. And we make sure that we have a plan in place for what we want to achieve. So major, I guess, accomplishments, major action items that can't be accomplished, you know, I guess, asynchronously in Slack. So it's a good way for all of us to come together, set some goals that are, you know, spanning quarters, months, years, what have you, and to track those. So what I wanted to talk about is the Q4 review, Q1, Q2 planning. And what I wanted to bring up is the fact that, you know, we kind of hit the holidays hard late in the year and we planned the Q4 really late in the session. We were a little late getting started there. And now we're already in Q1 kind of rolling forward there, and we haven't yet reviewed Q4. My thing that I wanted to bring up for this group is, do we want to just start with a Q2 planning and kind of bundle in Q4 and Q1 together? And I don't know what folks' thoughts are, and that's where I wanted to get feedback from. But really, I think we lost a lot of time with the holidays, with KubeCon EU. I think, at least I can speak for myself, I had a hard time getting started earlier this year, and I'm starting to get the train back on the tracks. And I think if we were to have a Q1 planning and review session, we're going to find ourselves doing a Q2 review and planning session almost immediately after that to get back on track. So I'm pitching the idea of doing a kind of combined Q4, Q1 review, and then do a Q2 planning session here in the next couple of weeks. And I wanted to get some feedback on that. Any strong opinions one way or the other? Cool.
Brad?
No, sounds good.
Awesome.
Okay.
Let's plan on that then. We'll plan on scheduling a Q4, Q1 review. Q1 being kind of an implied Q4 carryover, and then Q2 planning. And I'll get that scheduled here shortly.
Sounds good. Okay. Next up is an item I put on the agenda about GitHub discussions. So GitHub has added a new feature that I think is available to some organizations. GitHub discussions. Does anyone have questions about what GitHub discussions look like? Oh, go ahead, Zach.
No, I do. I've never seen a GitHub discussion. What do they look like?
So essentially, it looks a lot like the discussion that you can have in a GitHub issue without having an issue description. And I bet the code looks pretty similar, but they let you have a discussion on a topic without having to say, oh, this is a bug or this is a feature. This is something a bit more, a bit different. And there are some things which are going to live a long time that are, maybe especially contentious. So issues with a lot of discussion can be frustrating to work with because you have to scroll through all that stuff. And there's now an API that we can use. And actually, sometimes I think we want that discussion. I think we might have used that, for example, for let's localize the documentation, or how are we doing banners? There are topics where discussions make sense, and the sort of the rules of moderation can be a bit different for issues. So what do people think about that? Release might be another one. Ray, you might have a view.
So SIG Release is already using this feature for some topics. So it's already implemented by by SIG Release. I am one in favor of it. That's my personal opinion. Where there is example is for a release cycle, we create an issue to track who is the localization contact for each language. Currently, that's an issue. I think that is a great example that we could use for it to be a discussion instead. So it's not necessarily an issue. So.
Cool, thanks, Ray. Any more thoughts? Anyone not keen on it, but also anyone just want to say, what they feel?
Hey, I had a question. So I'm familiar with the other items that you mentioned, Tim. Slack, GitHub issues, maybe some comments in a PR, and these calls right here. Do we run the risk of discussion tool overload, or maybe not being all on the same page in terms of this would be the right place to have this discussion, so to speak?
I think that's a reasonable concern. I guess what I would add is that we can be confident that all contributors have got GitHub access. Some may not be able to access Slack. I think we have some contributors who cannot.
Okay, makes sense.
But it's a very legitimate concern. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't personally used GitHub discussions a ton. I'm actually kind of doing some research on the side here, looking at the preview, but if it makes other folks' lives easier, I'm all for it. I do agree Chris has a very valid concern about communication overload, but I think if there are specific reasons for using GitHub discussions, like you mentioned, such as the release team or, what have you, I think it makes sense for a very specific purpose. But I don't think it should be a kind of open can of worms of, are we in Slack? Are we in issues? Are we in GitHub discussions? Have very clear purpose for the use of it. But other than that, it seems like a reasonable suggestion.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't become yet another thing to have to go check that I forget to go check. That's what I'm worried about, because I got enough to check as it is.
Okay, I think what I'm hearing there is like soft minus noughts, but no strong objections. And I think I'm seeing consensus that for specific topic it is appropriate. Does that look right? Yeah, I'm seeing nodding. Cool. Okay, thanks for that discussion, people. And because we have so many new contributors on the call, this is a large number of new contributors. Let's spend a few minutes with, I guess if people want to, you could, and you're not a new contributor, this could be a moment to drop off. But for everyone who's interested, let's have a discussion about helping people who are new to SIG Docs make their first contribution, or their second if you're new but not that new. So that's what we'll talk about now. Anyone got any questions from the many new joiners?
I had one, Tim. I've been sort of passively monitoring what's going on here. I'm working on another project, but I find the whole thing extremely interesting and hope to learn from it. So my question is there some sort of sample pipeline that we could take a look at, or is there some place that we could maybe practice or come up with like an example PR from looking at it, then commenting on it, and then doing that sort of thing? So I guess my question is there some place where we could look at, again, the whole pipeline from PR submission to reviewing it? So that I guess we could practice, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Chris. Anyone feel like they'd particularly like to answer that question?
So I don't know if I necessarily have an answer, but I did want to suggest something for the wider group. And, you know, I think a lot of times, speaking from my own experience when I joined SIG Docs early on, is there's so many words and terminologies, and I felt very, I guess, afraid to make that step out there, to make a PR, to make a comment, to put my voice into the conversation. And I do want to throw out there that I feel like we have a pretty friendly group of individuals. And if you were to open up a PR that was maybe a test PR or a sample PR, and in the description indicated your purpose for creating said PR, look, this doesn't need review, I'm just sampling or testing this out, potentially, I believe that would be welcome in the community. It also might be a little bit of noise for folks, but I'm happy to hear objections to that. But I would have no problem seeing, hey, I'm a new contributor, I'm just testing this out. You know, no one's going to bite your head off for trying. Any
That's
thoughts
good
on
idea.
that?
Yeah, I think I'll give that a shot. Yeah, good idea.
So I will mention as well that GitHub has a facility to open a pull request as the draft, or to convert a pull request to draft. But also, if you haven't found that button, just like what Jim said, if you opened a PR and you said, I'm just trying things out, and you didn't find the draft button, like, don't think, oh my God, I can't open this PR because I've not found the draft button Tim mentioned. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you find it, use it. If you don't, it's all good. I'm going to add into the chat the list of good first issues, or the filter that you can go to this link and see our current good first issue list. Yeah. This essentially, if you find an issue here, then anyone is welcome to open the PR that addresses these. But we especially recommend that people save these for those folks for whom it's their first or second issue, so that ideally, these are issues that are straightforward to get going with. The reviewers will give you a little bit of extra help if you haven't quite got all the pieces together. And we intend that the description is clear enough that everything you need to do to address the issue is in there.
And Zach, I saw you had your hands up.
Yeah, I just pasted a link into chat. Chris, you can see what the process looks like for an entire PR from opening to discussion to merge by looking at the list of merged PRs for the repo. And oftentimes you'll see, like, in the header that there's also a linked issue. You can look at closed issues as well, and that will give you an idea of what discussion on issues looks like that leads to PRs, that leads to approval. Maybe the most non-intuitive piece of merging PRs is interacting with Prow. Prow is the K8s CI robot. Sorry, K8s is an abbreviation for Kubernetes. That wasn't clear. The K8s CI robot. It's a chatbot style bot that wrangles commands for repository actions. So that's why you'll see like / commands like /lgtm. That's actually a command to the CI robot. Yeah, but take your pick. You can look through that list and get a survey of what discussion and approval looks like.
Excellent. Thank you, Zach.
I'm just going to look for the introduction to Kubernetes docs that video that we recorded for KubeCon last year, which I don't have bookmarked.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That was that's what sort of sparked my interest.
That is great to know. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so happy that like went out into the world and that you heard that.
Is it safe to say that if the issue is assigned to someone, that it's going to be being actively worked on by that someone? Or is it worthwhile to ask, is this something you're working on or that I could try out for those good first issues, just because there are so many of them that are already assigned to people? How does that work?
I would like Zach to talk about cookies.
So we have what's called a no cookie licking policy. If you're familiar with, you lick a cookie to say this is mine. So yeah, there's a no cookie licking policy, but just because an issue is assigned to someone doesn't mean that other people can't work on it. So absolutely feel free to chime in, say, hey, I'm interested in working on this as well. Honestly, just feel free to open a pull request. If there's not already a pull request that's actively being reviewed for a particular issue, open a PR, because an open PR is going to mean a lot more in the end than somebody assigning something to themselves.
Cool.
One other thing. Go on, Mike. Sorry, I'm not going to talk over you.
I was just saying thanks.
In which case, I've got an anecdote then, which is the extent to which I think we live this policy is that we actually had 2 people spot that some deprecated documentation or some deprecated API for pod preset had not been removed. We'd missed that out in the 1.20 release process, and we should have removed it, and we didn't. And 2 people opened basically identical PRs and pull requests. They require a review and an approval, and you don't have to worry about that. If you're a new contributor, we'll take care of that for you. But if you keep contributing, we'll invite you to become a reviewer, and then you'll have to learn about it. And what I did was I got the person to open the second PR who happened to be a reviewer, and I was like, okay, that's great, thank you. This other one came in a couple of hours before. Would you go and review it? Would that be all right? And it worked out fine. But there's no problem there.
And one quick thing I did want to add too is even though there is the no cookie licking policy, sometimes cookies do get licked. And so what I want to mention is if you were to see an issue that looks like somebody was assigned, let's say 4 or 6 months ago, or it looks like it might be inactive, there's no shame or no, I guess, punitive action to go into Slack and saying, hey, look, I'm wondering, is this active, or commenting on that issue itself. I guess what I'm getting at is just because someone's assigned, if it looks like they have been inactive for a certain amount of time, it's an issue that you're interested in working on, try to reach out to the individual, reach out to SIG Docs, the Slack channel. Like I said, I think we're a pretty friendly bunch, I hope, and looking to help, contributors be successful in any way we can.
Anyone else who's especially a new contributor here who's got questions, even if you don't like, I'm interested to know what questions people have, even if you kind of feel like, actually, I could go and Google that now I've heard that. Like, what questions are on your mind? I'd love to hear that.
I'll go. I think I have one quick one about the blogs that you just mentioned, asking for updates. So does this group create blogs or just review blogs, or what is the process around contributing to Kubernetes blogs as such?
I guess I'll have a try and answer that. So Kubernetes has a blog. If you go to k8s.io/blog, we have some articles. In fact, I wrote one of them. And we publish that using the same mechanisms that you can read about in our documentation README. So it's a Hugo site generator. And the Hugo tool has built-in support for blog-like content. And that's what we use. There are a couple of sub-teams in SIG Docs, and the blog team is its own little team. So if you're putting a blog article up, the blog team will approve that. I mentioned that review and approval are slightly separate processes. Blog articles want review from the blog team usually, unless that's really urgent, and we might bend the rules a little bit with good reason. Thank you, Zach. On Slack, they have their own channel, which you're very welcome to join and ask for help there. The guidelines for contributing to the blog are a bit different. You know, it is blog content, so it's it doesn't have to stand the test of time in quite the same way that other content does. We always publish in English first, both for the blog and for the main website. And where on the main documentation, we're a bit wary of putting in solutions that talk a lot about technologies outside of Kubernetes. I think there's a bit more scope in the blog to explain how Kubernetes works with things and explain Kubernetes in the real world, even if the idea isn't completely complete. So long as it's informative, that's a kind of article we welcome. Any questions about the blog? Because there's more to say.
I think that was helpful. Thanks.
Cool. If you're thinking of suggesting a blog article, then absolutely, we absolutely welcome blog articles. It's not a way of contributing that I've mentioned, but a good way to get started is to open an issue and then open the PR for it with the blog article. You can also sort of talk to the blog team and start drafting something like a Google Doc or something, and the blog team will help you take the text that you're thinking of and turn it into a blog article. So if you're not familiar with Markdown or with web development, and you're more of a writer than a web developer, there's help there to get your thoughts onto the screen as well. The same goes if you know people who are, you know, good at writing, good at communicating, not Markdown writers by any means. We'll work with them, and we have people in the Kubernetes project who are very happy to help there. Any more questions about contributing? Any more thoughts? Okay. Don't forget, we're on Slack. If you've not joined Slack, you can go to slack.kubernetes.io and request an invitation to join the Kubernetes Slack organization. And then you can find us in a channel called SIG Docs. Last call for any thoughts on this meeting. Thanks, everyone. That's the SIG meeting.
Thank you very much.